Hi boys and girls, how are you today? Sorry it's been so long since our last video, but I guess I've been enjoying summer a little bit too much. So I wanted to take a moment to introduce you to our cat Dash. It's actually Evelyn's cat. I think in the last video Finnegan made a quick appearance, our dog. So say hello Dash. I know you want to go home. Okay, I'll let you down. Thank you, Luke. Okay,
Cameraman.
So let's start with this and find out what poem we're going to read today. Let's read, well, right next to the poem we read last time is Boa Constrictor. Boa Constrictor. Can you guys find that in your books? Towards the middle, I think. Boa Constrictor. Oh, I'm being eaten by a boa constrictor, a boa constrictor, a boa constrictor. I'm being eaten by a boa constrictor, and I don't like it one bit. Well, what do you know? He's nibbling at my toe. Oh, gee, he's up to my knee. Oh, he's up to my thigh. Oh, fiddle, he's up to my middle. Oh, heck, he's up to my neck. Oh, dread, he's... And you can see he's going to swallow him. I know that's one of your guys' favorite, and it is mine too. Okay, so we last left off on chapter 2. Chapter 1 just pretty much told us who John was. So we know that John's parents, John Midas's parents, were very worried about all the chocolate he was eating. And they were trying to get him eating other things. And he decided, no, I have to eat all this chocolate. And he gets a bunch of spots. They take him to Dr. Cranium. And he seems, oh, fine. His where they hit you on your knee is just fine too. Remember, he knocked the hammer out of the doctor's hand that flew across. And so he just tells his parents, like, he should probably have less candy, right? And now John is kind of upset because he wants to only eat candy. Okay, so we are on chapter 2. So if we look at our booklet that you have, day 2, chapter 2. So this is the skill for this chapter is sequencing. So that's putting the story in order. What happened first, what happened next, then what happened, and finally what happened. So usually at first we talk about who do we meet in this chapter, what's happening with them, then a couple events will happen to them, probably a problem somewhere in there, and then finally how did they solve that problem, okay? So it's going to tell the main events in the story of how it happened. So as we read these chapters, we're going to think about big events, and you're going to put them in order. So when you're doing this, you only at this point will have chapters 1 and 2. So I would use chapters 1 and 2 to do this. So at first, in chapter 1, who do we meet? We meet John Midas, right? What's happening to John Midas? Doesn't he visit the doctor sometime? And then in this chapter, something else is going to happen. So I would say maybe if you take the first 2 boxes and do chapter 1, and then the second 2 boxes do chapter 2, that probably would help you. So that's chapter 2. Here we go, chapter 2. This is page 22. It was Sunday afternoon. The sun was sinking low in the sky, but the air was still quite warm. John was wandering along in the direction of Susan's house, absent-mindedly looking down at the sidewalk, when his eye was suddenly caught by a dull, gleaming, silvery gray coin lying right in his path. The coin was the size of a quarter, but even as he leaned forward eagerly to pick it up, John noticed there was something strange about it. It did not have a picture of George Washington or a picture of an eagle. On one side, there was a picture of a fat boy. On the other side, there were the letters J.M., which was funny, John thought, because those letters happened to be his initials. Grasping the coin firmly, he ran toward Susan's house. She liked to collect things. He thought she might be interested to know that he had the beginning of a coin collection. Although he was in the habit of going over to Susan's by the same route once or twice almost every day, this afternoon John found himself turning left where he usually turned right. So we're at the top of page 24. It has this nice picture on it. So you can see John in this picture. He's peeking in what looks to be a candy store. Okay, so you can see John peeking into the wonderful window. Wouldn't it be fun to go to a candy store? You can peek in the window. In Wyandotte, there is a candy store. So if you've never been to a candy store, see if your parents will take you to Wyandotte to go there.
The candy's delicious.
I always go the same way, he thought. This time, for a change, I'm going a new way. He didn't stop to consider that you cannot go east by going west unless you go all the way around the world. Only 2 blocks along this unfamiliar street, John came to a small corner store. It was a neat red brick building with 2 big show windows. They were full of all sorts of candy. Susan was immediately absolutely forgotten. John pressed his nose against one of the windows. He was imagining the taste of chocolate-covered almonds and chocolate fudge on the other side of the glass when he noticed a man in a white apron standing behind the counter beckoning to him. John was surprised. He hadn't expected the store to be open on a Sunday. "Don't just stand there in the doorway, John," a man called heartily. "Come on in and get some fresh, sweet, creamy chocolate. There's a special sale today." How did the man know his name? John wondered. He couldn't remember having seen the store before. The storekeeper saw John hesitate. "The chocolate I use in my kitchen comes direct from the heart of Africa," he said. "I use none of but the finest ingredients. And my recipes! Well, I bet you've never had chocolates like mine before. Come on in." "Thank you," John replied, walking to the counter. "But you see, the trouble is, well..." "No money?" the storekeeper asked. "No money whatsoever? What have you got there in your right hand?" John had forgotten the old coin in his hand. "Oh," he said, "this is part of my coin collection. I mean," he added more honestly, "I'm going to save this coin and then get some more to make a collection." "Let me have a look at it," the storekeeper said. He looked briefly at the coin. "Aha!" he exclaimed. "Is it any good?" John asked, his hopes suddenly rising. "Very good," said the storekeeper. "In fact, it's the only kind of money I accept. But I don't suppose you'd want to spend it on a box." "A whole box?" "I imagine you'd rather keep this for your coin collection than spend it on chocolate, wouldn't you?" "Oh, no," John said. "Chocolate any day." "Go ahead then, help yourself," the storekeeper said, pointing to a heavily laden show table piled high with large cellophane-wrapped candy boxes, all exactly alike. "You mean I can have one of these?" John asked. His eyes were round with surprise. The candy boxes were as big as the ones his father brought home at Christmas time. "Just help yourself," the storekeeper assured him. "That is, unless you think it might be better to ask your mother first." "Well, she wouldn't mind," John said hastily and blushed. The storekeeper winked knowingly. "I'm sure she won't," he agreed. "Not in the long run, anyway." John tucked one of the large boxes under his arm, declined the storekeeper's offer to wrap it as a gift, thanked him, and hurried out of the store before there could be any questions of anyone changing his mind. The storekeeper smiled as he watched his customer hurrying away down the street. Then at the end of this page there are 3 stars, and sometimes the authors will do that to tell you that this scene has closed and a new one is beginning. So you can kind of see there's 1, 2, 3 stars at the bottom. So they're saying this scene has closed, a new one is going to begin on the very next page, page 30. Top of page 30. John decided that it might be sensible to enter his house quietly by the way of the kitchen. With the large candy box hidden behind him, he let himself in by the back door and crept up the kitchen stairway on tiptoe toward his own room on the top floor. Just as he was about to round the corner on the second floor to continue his way up his stairs, he had to stop for a moment while his father walked by, coming along from the bedroom telephone. "That was Mrs. Buttercup on the phone," Mr. Midas called to Mrs. Midas as he walked down the front stairs. "She said she was sorry John hadn't been able to get over to play with Susan this afternoon. But it was a good thing in a way, she thought, because Susan's already so excited about her birthday party tomorrow. I wonder where John could have gone to." As soon as the second floor was quiet again, and John knew there was no danger of his candy box would be seen, he hurried silently up to his bedroom, pushed open the door, and slid the box under the bed. Then he walked heavily down to the living room. "Well, there you are," said Mrs. Midas. "We couldn't imagine where you had been. What have you been doing?" "Oh, just sort of playing around," John said. I don't think that's the truth, and that might get John in trouble later on, huh?
Isn't it called playing hooky?
Midway through page 31, so there's a big space here telling you a new scene is coming. John usually took a long time to put his things away and undress and bathe and get ready for bed, for he thought sleeping was a waste of time. But this evening he started yawning long before his usual bedtime. Sleepy," John announced. "All right," said Mrs. Midas. "You better be getting to bed. Time for your tonic." Top of page 32. So remember that Dr. Cranium gave him a tonic. That would be like some yucky medicine that you might have to drink and swallow. John's tonic came in a bottle. It had been prescribed by Dr. Cranium. John had to drink a big spoonful every night to make up for all the vegetables and fruit that he left on his plate at lunch and dinner. The tonic tasted like soap, mud, glue, ink, and paint. It tasted horrible. Much to Mrs. Midas's surprise, John ran ahead of her to the dining room cupboard where the tonic and the tonic spoon were kept. By the time she got there, he had already filled the spoon. Then, without any coaxing, he emptied it into his mouth. "Ooh," John sputtered. "Ooh, bleh." "That's a very good boy," Mrs. Midas said. "Now, why can't you be sensible and eat up your nice dinner that way? If you'd only stop eating so much candy, you'd be able to eat your meals properly, and you wouldn't need to take tonic." Soon John was scrubbed and tucked in his pajamas and in bed, ready to be tucked in for the night. Mrs. Midas sat on the bed and stroked his forehead for a moment. Then she leaned forward and kissed his cheek. John, pretending that he was very sleepy, shut his eyes and began breathing deeply. When Mrs. Midas rejoined Mr. Midas in the living room, she said, "I've never known John to be so good about going to bed before, and he went to sleep in no time." A few seconds after the bedroom door had closed behind his mother, John leaped to the floor, got down on his hands and knees, and felt under the bed for the candy box. He soon had it on the pillow, set to work unfastening it. First he took off the thin outer sheet of cellophane. Then he lifted off the lid. Then he removed the sheet of cardboard. Then he pulled off a square of heavy tinfoil. Then he took out a layer of shredded paper. We're on page 34, it's the last page in that chapter, and we're right on the 4th line. As the wrappings piled up around him, John became rather anxious. At last he came to a small central ball of cotton batting, and right there in the middle was a little golden ball. He picked up the ball with his fingernail and peeled away the gold paper, revealing a tiny piece of plain chocolate. It was the only piece of chocolate in the whole box. Deeply disappointed, John nevertheless put it in his mouth. He had never tasted chocolate quite like it. It was the most chocolatey chocolate he had ever encountered. And that is the end of chapter 3. So I'm going to shoot another video. I'm going to shut this one down, and you'll see me in the next video in the same outfit. So I want to give you guys 2 chapters back to back, because I think that might be easier. I know you waited quite a bit for chapter 2. So I'll give you through chapter 3, and then maybe in a few days we can do some more chapters back to back. I think it'll just be easier for us that way. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming and reading chapter 2 with me today. And I'm so proud of all your hard work and that you guys are continuing reading over the summer. So I hope you're smiling at me while you're seeing this. And if I can look really closely, I forgot to do this. Who is out there? I see Madison. Hi, Madison. If I look really closely, who is that? Oh, it's hard to see. Makai. Hi, Makai. I see you smiling at me. Oh, it's so good to see all of you, and I hope to see you again real soon. Bye.